I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Entertainment Earth. They carry tens of thousands of licensed products covering everything from Power Rangers to Pokemon, Ultraman to Iron Man. And for RangerCast listeners, you can get 10% off your order and free shipping on any order $79 and up. Just go to ee.toys/ranger. That's ee.toys/ranger. Or click the link in our show notes. RangerCast may receive a commission from your purchase. This is RangerCast, episode 32, an interview with Shawn Pryor, the author of Kaiju Unleashed. Hey everyone, Tyler here. So, as you might have heard in the intro, we have a really cool interview that I'm really excited to bring you, but that'll be coming in just a few minutes. First, we have some housekeeping to take care of. So, about a couple hours before I sat down to record this intro, we learned of the death of David Weatherly, known to Power Rangers fans as Spencer and the voice of Benglo in Operation Overdrive. He was a really accomplished actor in New Zealand. He didn't really have that many screen credits. Most of his credits actually were on stage in a decades-long career, going from the mid-'60s up till rather recently, I believe. He's a very fascinating person. He grew up in England, left at 17 to join the Canadian Armed Forces, and rose to the level of sergeant, and went to New Zealand seeking what he thought was a commissioned role in the armed forces there. But life happened, and he happened to just fall into acting. So you can read the full story on the RangerCast website. But he lived a long, full life. He was 85. Some fans may also, if you go back maybe as far as I do, remember how active he was on Ranger Board while Overdrive was airing. He was a very, very fascinating guy, and our heart goes out to his family. This episode is dedicated to his memory. Also, in other news, we have a teaser for Gojuger, which we will talk about next time, I hope. And also, we will offer some takes on Rita's Rewind, which, according to the thread on Reddit and other takes around, is a bit divisive. So I'm sure we'll all have some thoughts about that. Now, before I throw the interview, I'd like to wish everybody a happy and safe winter holiday season. Whatever it is you celebrate, we hope it's a good one. Anyway, on to the interview. Shawn Pryor is an author of more than 50 books, primarily graphic novels for children and young adults, including the recent Fast Break, The Gamer, and the Kids Sports series. He's also a longtime fan of Tokusatsu and Power Rangers, having written a short story for Book 2 of the Go-Go Power Rangers hardcover collection, and the compendium Kentucky Kaiju. His new book, Kaiju Unleashed, is out now in hardback from Epic Inc. Shawn, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that intro. Thank you.
Great. Now, can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Yeah, Kaiju Unleashed is the illustrated guide to the world of strange beasts. Like, I am a big fan of kaiju film, kaiju cinema, whether it be Godzilla or Gamera or King Kong or the Monster Verse. And so what Quarto Books and Epic Inc. wanted to do was they wanted to do a book that basically gets people not only hype about the world of kaiju, but gives them a better understanding of it. So, we tell people in the book, hey, this is who, these are the important people who molded Godzilla and made who Godzilla is today. And we talk about the different eras of Godzilla, different eras of Gamera, the different eras of King Kong. But we also talk about how like American cinema, like King Kong and King Kong and certain American monster movies back in the day inspired Toho to create Godzilla. Okay. And so then from there, we also talk about, like international kaiju cinema, American monster movies / American kaiju cinema. We also talk about television shows, comic books, animated stuff, video games. It is a plethora of information, regarding the world of kaiju.
Yeah, this is obviously, a topic that I'm very interested in, but there are
Mhm.
also a lot of movies that I haven't watched.
Yes.
So would you say that this is aimed at people who are already into the genre or people who want to get into the genre?
I would say honestly, I would say both. For people that want to get into the genre, this is the perfect book. This is,
Mm,
in all sincerity, it is the perfect book. So not only do you learn a little bit about the history, you're going to get, like, hey, this is the list of Showa era Godzilla films. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit about each one of them, give you some facts and additional insight, and so forth and so forth. But no, it's perfect for entry level kaiju folks that like haven't really gotten into the world of kaiju, and for the pros or experts, I think it's good for them because you know, like even the most expert of experts still hasn't seen it all. You know what I mean? And
right.
so,
Yeah.
and also that whole thing of like Godzilla and helped inspire like these American, like later American monster movies and like independent monster movies as well in America. So like back in like the 90s, there was this film called Zarkor the Invader, if I'm not mistaken, and basically that's an American kaiju film. That is an American kaiju film. It was direct to video, but like it was so it came like somewhat of a cult classic. It's not the greatest movie in the world, but like the kaiju design for Zarkor is really awesome. But like you don't get Zarkor if you don't have Godzilla. So yeah.
Yeah, I found it really interesting how exhaustive your book is, not just in acknowledging the kind of conversation between Japanese films and Western films. You even mentioning a film like Colossal, which I wouldn't really, think to include, but like so exhaustive, you included Pulgasari
Mhm.
for North Korea, which is it could be a book on its own. I
Yeah.
think it is a book on its own, essentially.
Yes. Yes, like
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that we touched as many areas as possible because the more areas that we touch, like the more curious people get and the more they'll want to read further. So like I try to leave no stone unturned.
Hmm. Hmm. So the book actually starts in your introduction with your own kind of origin story as a fan,
Mhm.
uh, catching part of Destroy All Monsters. How did you go from, obviously people can read the book, but how do you go from like watching Destroy All Monsters to voraciously gobbling up Godzilla stuff to wanting to write a book like this?
Okay. So like my family is like a very big influence on the whole Godzilla thing. So when I first saw like the last like hour of Destroy All Monsters. It was like late night on a Saturday. I was 4 or 5 years old, and I was like, "Oh, this is the night I get to stay up late. This is great." And I started to get tired. I was like, "Well, I'll go to bed." And then that's when I heard the TV roar. I heard the Godzilla roar for the first time. And so me and my mom, we watched it together. And like what I didn't know at that time was is that like my mom loved Godzilla movies. And so I asked her, I just said, "Hey, do you know when the next one's coming on?" And so she was like, "Well, I'll check the TV guide, and and we'll see when the next one's coming on. We'll watch it together." So it was like a family thing for like the longest time, from like the age of like 4 to 5 to at least like 13 years old. Like it was a family thing. We watch them together, and I just enjoyed them so much. And so I go through this period of time, like in the '90s, where this is pre DVD, like stuff is kind of hard to find. You're starting to find like niche markets that are putting kaiju cinema on VHS tape, but like you still can't get like a lot of you still couldn't get a lot of the '90s Godzilla films in stores that sold VHS tapes. Like it was something that was you had to import it in, and Lord knows that I didn't have that money. So like it kind of like I was kind of away for a moment, but then when DVDs happened, that's when the love came back. And
Right.
so now I have access. So like I can get DVDs of all these Godzilla films, and then there are the imports, which are like the Japanese, which is basically it's not a re-edit, it's the straight up Japanese version, with subtitles. And so like there was more access, and then the more access that I was able to get to, and it was remotely affordable, compared to like the boom of like the late '80s, early '90s VHS tape. It was affordable, and I was able to get these DVDs, and like I just I had a blast. I had an absolute blast. And
Mm.
so then we fast forward. Um, I fast forward to like last year. I was asked by Corto and Epic Inc. to write a book about kaiju films. They recently done a book about horror films, and and the book is similar to Kaiju Unleashed, but like they talk about specific genres of horror, specific characters. It doesn't go all the way in, but it goes in pretty far. And so they were like, we want to kind of do something like that for Kaiju. And I was like, okay, that's great. I'd love to do it. I just, I had to make sure I told them, I was like, this is going to be extensive. This Kaiju stuff, is not just Japan centric. It's, like Japan is the key. It's the linchpin. But I was like, we have American, foreign, and all this other stuff. We have, like I said, all the cartoons, the comics, there's so much stuff that intertwines together. And we need to talk about all of it in order for this book, I feel, to be successful. And they agreed to it. And so I started writing the book in November of 2023, finished it in March of 2024, and got the edits back in by May 2024. So yeah, we were hustling on this one.
Yeah, this is audio. Our listeners couldn't see, my eyebrows raised when you said you did this all in a few months.
Yeah, it was tough, but I love the result.
What was that research process like? I can't imagine you were just like vomiting facts and cast lists and all that onto the page.
Right. It was tons of research. So here I am, like looking at websites, kaiju based websites, some fan sites, some wiki pages. Okay, I have some DVDs that I can use for reference. Let me just check the scene here. Oh, I have some books about certain types of kaiju cinema. So let me go read that too. And I read the works of Steve Rifle, and I worked there. Steve Rifle, who's written a bunch of books about Godzilla movies,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the writings of Jason Barr. He was the author of the Kaiju film, A Critical Study of Cinema's Biggest Monsters, and Kaiju Connection. Okay, and so I read a lot of that material too. And so because if we just gave, because I knew, like, if I just gave y'all like a cast list and like alternate film titles, you're not going to be satisfied by that. You kind
Yeah.
of want to know what was like the box office reaction, like how did folks in Japan feel about Godzilla movie X or Godzilla movie Y. And they also allowed me to be like a little opinionated when I talked about the 1998 Godzilla film.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. But
yeah.
I like I said, I did find it really interesting that, with the exception of the 1998 Godzilla, you treated these other films like Gareth Edwards stuff and Godzilla versus Kong and all that, even the older Hollywood monster movies, with such respect and care, as if they're just as legitimate parts of the canon as anything else.
Oh yeah, because they are. I know. Like sometimes, people view like the creature features, the American creature features of like the 50s and the 60s and even up to the 70s. They just, so a lot of people see it as just lowbrow fare. But the thing is that like a lot of those movies are built on $5 in a dream, just like how the original Godzilla was essentially built on $5 in a dream. So like they're low budget movies, and they're doing the best they can with what they have. And sometimes they actually end up innovating, their own special effects in order to make this movie. Like one of my favorite movies, and I talk about it in the book, I believe, is the Giant Spider Invasion. Okay, like that was a 1970s independent film that starred like a skipper from Gilligan's Island. I think it's Alan Hale, I believe, and a couple of like old school TV slash movie stars from like back in like the 50s and 60s. And this was all done independently. The giant spider, like literally, it was just this big crafted spider that they put over top of a AMC Gremlin to get it to move around the city. And then there were some scenes where like this giant spider, they drop it on top of a house, and like they literally drop it on top of the house, and you see like the house just like kind of cave in a bit, and like they just legitimately just dropped. They had a helicopter, so let it go, boom. And so, but there's just something as corny as that movie can be at times, there's just something charming about. Oh, that was my dog. I apologize. I got a puppy. There's something just very warm and comforting about how everyone took that movie seriously,
Mhm.
and so like it's just such a joy. And so I want to make sure that like people like see monster cinema and kaiju cinema as something more than just low brow entertainment because it's more than
Yeah. There's so many like interesting details in your book that uh, you either
that.
didn't know or were memory hold. Like for example, Leonard Nimoy was in one of these American monster movies, and
Mhm.
there was a time before Spock when he was doing pretty much anything.
Yeah.
Um, what in your breakneck period of research and writing was what sort of things surprised you to learn?
Um, the relationship between Toho Studios and Rankin Bass. Rankin Bass, known for
Yeah.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and a lot of stop motion animation, also regular animation. They worked with Toei a lot for like The Last Unicorn and the animated Hobbit and the animated Return of the King. So they work with Toho. So Toho works with Rankin Bass and Universal for King Kong Escapes. Okay. And so that's like, this is Japanese King Kong. This is Japanese King Kong. This is an American King Kong. This is a Japanese co-production with Rankin Bass. It does have American actors in it. But the thing is that like the movie's great. It's a lot of fun. King Kong fights Mechanic Kong, and like there's this evil doctor who's is a um I believe he's actually Japanese actor, but like he's voiced by Paul Frees, who used to do like a lot of the voices for the Rankin Bass animated stuff and stop motion stuff. So like the voice doesn't really fit because it's literally Burgermeister Meisterburger from Santa Claus is Coming to Town as a Doctor Who, not to be confused with the Time Lord, but like I so then after that this relationship forms between Rankin Bass and Toho, and they end up doing like three movies together in like the late 70s or early 80s because Toho was like, listen, we want to get back into the United States theaters. We want to be able to make money there. So they work with Rankin Bass and they do this movie called The Last Dinosaur. And like it's a big time production. They have a major soundtrack, and they pitch it to every single like studio and distributor, and everybody and all of them were like, no, we don't want it. But ABC wanted it because they were doing Sunday night movies. And so they were like, well, we'll take it. Let's see how it goes. And it was a smashing success. So Toho and Rankin Bass were like, well, yeah, we didn't make the cinema, but we made a good amount of money for it being on TV. So let's do it again. And so then they did the Bermuda Heights and the Ivory Ape. And so like I just because like I just found that fascinating that like them working with Toho on like King Kong Escapes leads to this like co-production relationship, and I just found that to be fascinating.
Mhm. Now, in recent years, we've seen movies like Pacific Rim, and we've seen Godzilla minus one win an Oscar, and we've seen all this excitement around the Netflix output for like Ultraman and Godzilla as animated series. Um, would you say that we are on like an upswing of interesting kaiju stuff in the U.S. or in the like context of like the ebbs and flows from the 50s till now? Is this maybe the most prominent that kaiju and tokusatsu stuff has been in the US?
Yes, it's definitely in the most prominent, and I think that we are like in a glory age right now. If we're being honest, I mean, think about it. So you have Tokusatsu, which is a streaming channel that plays tons of Tokusatsu from Godzilla movies, Super Sentai, Ultraman, Kamen Rider. You also have Toei Studios, working with Discotech to put out,
Right.
to put out like a bunch of Common Rider series and other things. You've got Mill Creek working with with the Ultraman
Tsuburaya?
people. Yeah,
Yeah.
Subriya, yeah, Subriya Productions to get, all those out like on Blu-ray and streaming. And so like we are, like I said, we're in a great period for this because it's maximum access and like streaming and YouTube have been like a very big bonus for kaiju. And like it's now more accepted than ever. It's no longer seen as a joke. It's no longer seen as corny or campy. It can be campy, it can be corny, but it's not just seen that way. And so, like, I personally feel that it will continue to grow, and but like that growth is also dependent on how much like Toei or Toho or Subaraya Productions and things like companies like those overseas are willing to share
Mm.
are willing to share, so but we'll see. But right now, like it's a fantastic feeling. I mean, like who thought we would ever see like Shin Kamen Rider in American movie theaters? So like that's pretty amazing if you think about it.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of like Voltron and Robotech were like Trojan horses for bringing anime in front of American eyes. Power Rangers was a Trojan horse for bringing tokusatsu
Mhm.
and other things like that in front of American eyes. But I think uh, with Power Rangers, there's kind of this preconception, this baggage. How do kaiju films and shows overcome like those preconceived notions that because something is like this,
Mhm.
it's going to be campy, it's going to be for kids or whatever.
I think for American audiences, I think 2014 Godzilla changed that.
Mm.
So you mean like, like yeah, you had the absolutely absurd action, but like it's caked in with a legitimate serious drama. And not saying that like the Japanese Godzilla films aren't dramatic, they are. Like every single Japan Godzilla film is about the preservation of humanity. Against against all odds. But at the same time, American audiences back then just saw those films as just monster movies and can't be fun. So when you get Godzilla in 2014 from Legendary, you get a very serious film. The stakes are high, the consequences are high, to the point where you might feel that Godzilla might lose, and it pulls you in. And I think that moment right there, that's where American audiences started to take it seriously because, like, when you had Godzilla 2014, and then when Kong Island was about to happen, like I remember talking with a friend, I was like, if this doesn't work, this is it. I was like, this is going to be the last, like like big monster movie that we're going to see for a long time, and we probably won't see another Godzilla movie because like we knew this was all going to be interconnected, and that was a big hit. And so like it just continues to grow and grow and grow and become more and more respected. And so I think that's a good thing. Like Power Rangers, I'm a big Power Rangers fan.
I mean,
Like
obviously, so am I.
yes, yes. And so like I remember dealing with that stigma when Mighty Morphin to Zeo to Turbo, but then in Space comes out, and like the stigma of that Power Rangers changes with Power Rangers in space. And and like some teenagers, folks in their 20s, like, oh well, this is actually a really good, this is a really good drama, this is really great, and it has a lot of depth to it, and like so they took it seriously. I'm not saying that MMPR or Zeo wasn't taken seriously. Zeo's like my favorite series. I love Zeo, that's like my
Mhm.
favorite. But like it took like a long time for the general public to accept Power Rangers as something that's mainstream, even though it was around for dang near 30 years, you know. So yeah, like it's like the the gauge of acceptance can be kind of odd sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. God, it feels like just yesterday that Godzilla minus one won the Oscar. What do you think the long term impacts of that film's worldwide success will be for the genre?
I think for the genre, it's definitely going to get more people to pay attention to kaiju cinema and also special effects. and have a better appreciation of special effects because, as we both know, Godzilla minus one, they made that movie for not a lot of money, and that looks like a $200 million film, which was done for probably less than 15 million, if that. And so we're going to start to see a continuation of better appreciation for special effects and storytelling, and also more of an acceptance of like monster cinema and kaiju cinema. And that may not be seen at the Oscars, but it will reflect in either the box office or from a critic standpoint, it will be received a little bit better.
Yeah, I think it's refreshing that a film like that, that's subtitled, that's Japanese, uh, can be successful and stand alone without having to put in a Bryan Cranston or a Raymond Burr.
Yes, yes. And I love the fact that like it's subbed. Like I didn't need a dub for this. Like I have no problems reading subtitles. A good movie is a good movie no matter what. So like I'm even like the black and white version, the Godzilla minus one,
Mhm.
without color, minus color, like that's it. The movie's just it's gorgeous in black and white, it's gorgeous in color. It's amazing. And like, I didn't think they were gonna win. I didn't think they were gonna win that award. I really didn't. And when they did, I was like, okay. I said, okay. I was like, Hollywood is now officially taking this kaiju stuff seriously.
Yeah, and you might not be the only one. I remember, watching them win, and Danny DeVito was cheering. You could like hear him over the mic. It was
Yes,
hilarious.
it was
Like,
great.
yeah, yeah.
It was so awesome. And so like, it's a good feeling, and I just like the fact that this is starting to become something that's just accepted. I know like a lot of people are like, well, yeah, more people are accepting of it, and like, but like, they're not like original fans or whatnot. I don't care about that.
Yeah,
I
well,
don't care
yeah,
about that. The
yeah.
more people watch it, if they enjoy it, it's fantastic. Let them see more of it. Like that's where I stand.
I think tradition states Godzilla gets to present next time.
I would love to see that.
um, so as I alluded to at the top, you have actually written a Power Rangers comic before, the
Mhm,
short story "A Ranger in the Making," which was in the Go Go Power Rangers Book Two collection. Tell
mhm.
me how that story came about, and for those who haven't read it, it looked at the second members of the second Turbo team a few years before they assumed the power. Tell me how that came about.
Yeah, I had a friend by the name of T Franklin, who at the time was is a writer, writes, has written plenty of books, written plenty of comics and stuff, graphic novels, and they were pitching a book to Boom. I mean, and they were pitching a book to Boom Studios, and so T was talking with the editor, and she put my name in the room. And she said, "Well, my friend Shawn, he writes comics and he does this and does that, and he would love to write Power Rangers. As a matter of fact, he did they said, well, he did like a tribute comic, like a few years ago. Have you seen it?" And so she had a copy of it, in PDF, and sent it to the editor. And the editor had seen that artwork before because George Cambadase, the artist on the tribute comic that we did, and also the artist on the story that I wrote for Go Go Power Rangers Volume 2 hardcover. Um, like he's the artist for both of those. But then like once the editor saw that, like, oh, I've seen this artwork before. I thought these were just sample test pages. And T was like, no, this was a story that they writ that that they did for fun, and as a way to just show love to Power Rangers. And so that led to said editor getting in touch with me and talking with me about, hey, we've got room for like a 10-page story in Go Go Power Rangers Volume 2. It's going to be on the hardcover. It's exclusive to the hardcover. It will be available in digital format. And so like we just start talking about characters because like we're trying to figure out what we're going to write about because we're dealing with basically season 2 MMPR. We're dealing with season 2 MMPR. So like you got Rocky, Aisha, and Adam. with Jason, not Jason, but but Tommy, Billy, and Kimberly. So I'm like, okay, okay. So I was like, well, you know what? I'm a big TJ fan. So I was like, how about if we do this? And like basically in the comics, for those that aren't aware, in the Boom comics, Rocky has a very big fan. Has a number of brothers and sisters, and he's always looking over them while also trying to be a superhero and a high schooler. So, like his sister, one of his sisters, is starting middle school. The same, and is going to be at the same middle school as TJ and Cassie. But the story is about how TJ and Cassie attempt to save a bunch of kids from a invasion of Tengu warriors, and how in that, even when things look at their bleakest, they still do their best, and they kind of get half the mission done. But the Power Rangers show up, save the day. But the whole point of it is that TJ saves, and I'm spoiling Living Daylights out, but it's okay. TJ saves Rocky. TJ and Cassie save Rocky's sister. And so Rocky then says to Zordon, he was like, listen, I know you're always looking for recruits, but like, maybe in a few years, you might want to consider these two kids over here. So like that was like the whole premise for the story. And we put a lot in there for 10 pages. We put a lot in there.
Yeah,
And
it's
like,
very
so
good.
thank you. That was a bucket list item for me. And so I love it.
Yeah, and Total Eclipse is the fan comic. It's available on your website, correct?
Yeah, if you go to ShawnPryor.com and like you click on books, you scroll down,
Yeah,
and like there's
yeah.
a link
I'm
for
I'm I'm looking at the page right now.
it. Awesome. Yeah, there should be a link. There should be a link
Yeah,
there, like right next to it. So yeah, it was a story that me and George Cambides did for fun. It was built off of TV continuity, and like one of my favorite Power Ranger episodes is Forever Red.
right,
Um, because like that was the first time we really saw the Disney money in action when
Mhm.
when Disney, like, basically took over the second half of Wild Force.
Right.
And so I was just like, but like I got to see like all the Red Rangers except Rocky. And I was like, but this is really cool. So like like anytime there are team ups or things like that, Forever Red has set the bar. Like if you're not, like, if you can't reach that bar, then I'm like, I don't know what we're gonna do. But
Mhm.
anyway, so I wanted to do like that, but for like Black Rangers, Black Uniform Rangers. So, I wanted to see Zach and Adam actually team up, and I wanted to see the Black Alien Ranger and the Phantom Ranger. And for those that haven't read it, there's a surprise when you see who the Phantom Ranger is in this one, and as well as Magna Defender. I'm a big fan of Magna Defender. I love that outfit so much. It's just so freaking cool.
I know,
So
right?
like to like basically kind of do like a Forever Black episode. Man, like it was cool. Like, here's some putties. You haven't seen putties in a long time. Here's the return of Finster. You haven't seen him in forever. Here's a story about how Finster survived the Z wave that took place at the end of Power Rangers in space. So we answer a bunch of questions, and but put a lot of adventure and action.
Yeah, yeah. Now, tell me about Kentucky Kaiju.
Yeah.
It's a field guide to. Are these like based on creatures that are in like Kentucky stories or anything like that?
Oh
But it's
no, no, no.
yeah, it sounds
We just
difficult to
make.
explain.
Oh yeah, we just like, okay. So my friend Justin Stewart, who's like the lead creator on Kentucky Kaiju, he and Tracina Bowling, incredible artists. Okay, so like one day Justin was just like at the library, and he found like a field guide to like birds, and he was like, you know what? How about if we did this, but for Kentucky, but create our own kaiju for the state of Kentucky, because we all reside in Kentucky. Okay.
Right.
So we're making like this like this fake field guide to these kaiju that supposedly reside in the state of Kentucky. And so my job was to come up with the names and their histories. So now when we're dealing with histories, I'm like, okay, well, let's use actual cities and towns, And if they have something in that city or town that I can use to build a story around, let's go. And so, like I I had a glass of bourbon one night. I had a glass of bourbon, took a sip, and I just started typing and typing and typing. And so, after Tressa and Justin received like all the monsters and their histories that I wrote, I they just went at it. And so you'll see kaiju like like a giant horse kaiju because 'cause the bluegrass is known for horses. There's also a kaiju ant called Tex Ant who is addicted to barbecue, particularly addicted to high fructose corn syrup and most barbecue sauces, which gives them diabetes, which is the version of kaiju diabetes. And let's see, there's so many cool kaiju in that book. It was originally published by Apex Publishing back in like 2016. Justin got the rights back
Uh,
late last year and did a Kickstarter for it for a new version, which is basically an expanded edition, a larger print size. So it's like the original content from the first book, but with additional kaiju and like additional articles and like all kinds of like cool stuff. And so like he's fulfilling those rewards right now. And then after that, we'll figure out how we're going to sell it, over the internet and hand to hand.
so I understand from doing my research before this interview that you teach comic art to kids in a workshop, right?
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
do. From January to like late May, early June. I along with a bunch of other talented artists. Like I teach a group of kids at a middle school in Lexington, Kentucky. And we do like lessons like on Saturdays from like 10 to 12 and for 2 hours. And we teach kids about sequential art. And so like the process of like logo design, comic page layout, storytelling. Like one of the cool things that we got to do, and this was like I think it was the last class from this past year. I had printed out a bunch of penciled pages, and like so like 'cause I was doing a bunch of research trying on the internet trying to find just like penciled covers and like penciled sequential pages, whether it be blue lines or black lines, it's fine. But I wanted to teach the kids how to ink pages, and I wanted to show like, and I was like, the whole purpose of like letting y'all do this is I want y'all to understand that like an inker can change a penciler's artistic style with just one swish of the pen. And so like they had a pen that was like you had the ink, the thick end, and like the little ballpoint, and I let them go at it. And so like so I had like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle pages, Avengers pages, Star Wars stuff, and they had a ball. They had an absolute ball, and like and it was there like you could see who has like who has the talent, who is growing, and who still needs work. And so so new class starts in a couple of months, and actually in a month the new class starts, and like we're going to put the kids in teams and have them create like their own 4-page comic. And then I'll get it and we'll collate it all together and get it printed out, and so like they can share it with their friends. And also like I want them to be able to also talk to other professional artists in all different types of fields. So like I want them to talk with, because I'm going to have Zoom sessions with with the kids, so they get to talk to professional artists in comics and movie and cartoon storyboarding and things like that, so they can understand all the different careers that are out there for them, if they want to go that route.
That's super cool, man.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Kids mean a lot to me, man. Like, like 5 years ago, like my life changed when I made the adjustment over to the book market, from like the direct market, which was like strictly comics, comics, comics. And so like the moment I diversified my writing palette, everything changed for me. And
Right.
that opened up me visiting tons of elementary schools and middle schools and talking to the kids about creativity and like superheroes and stuff like that. And so it's been good for me. And so like I just feel it's necessary to give back. And because
Yeah.
like shoot, I'm not gonna be able to do this forever, but while I'm still here, I'm definitely gonna, I just want to show kids, one, we care about them, and two, I just also want them to appreciate the arts.
Mm, mm. So you put your book Kaiju Unleashed out in November. Have you given any thought to what a follow up might look like?
A follow-up book would, if I had the opportunity to do a follow-up book, I would love to do one on Super Sentai.
Mm,
I would adore that. I would, and yeah, we would talk about Power Rangers, but like, let's talk about where it came from. You
right.
know, let's from Jack Hugh to like all the way through Car Ranger, all the way
Yeah.
through like like all the stuff that like we never got in this in the United States. Like I would love to talk about all that and like how Super Sentai is important and they're also superheroes and they have been around just as long as most Marvel superheroes,
Mhm.
DC superheroes, and like they're just as cool.
Yeah, our friend Josh Moore is putting out a book. I think he lives in Kentucky too.
Yes, he
He's putting
does.
out
Yes.
yeah, he's putting out a book in a few months about how the Power Rangers came to be and the whole
Mhm.
history of that. I full disclosure, I actually he interviewed me for the book and used a photo of mine and I reviewed the manuscript. But hey, that way I know it's good.
Yes. Yes. No. No. He reached out to me not too long ago to write a blurb for the book,
Mm.
and I'm excited about it. You know what I mean? Like anytime we can get like you know behind the scenes stuff about the Power Rangers, I think that's cool because it continues to legitimize something that so many people look down upon for like the longest time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, thank you so much for coming on. Sean Pryor, you can find his stuff at seanpryor.com. And where else can people find you?
Okay, yeah. You can find me on Blue Sky, at Blue Sky at Shawn, Shawn, the letter R, Pryor, Pryor, like Richard Pryor. You can find me on Instagram at The Sean P Show. If you want to buy my books, you can go to my website. I need to update it though, but it's got a decent amount of material up there. But if I know like a lot of people like to buy books from independent bookstores, you can go to bookshop.org, type my name, you'll see a bunch of my books there, or you can go to Amazon, type my name, you can see my books there. Same at barnesandnoble.com, or wherever books are legitimately sold.
Yes,
You'll find a
yes,
bunch of my books there. Yes.
yes. Please support independent bookstores. I got it from Amazon because I need it in a hurry.
Yeah, I
Uh,
understand. There's
yeah,
no judgment here. There's no judgment.
yeah. But thank you so much for taking the time out to talk with us, and we hope the book continues to get great reviews.
Thank you so much, Tyler, and thank you for your time. I do sincerely appreciate you.
If you like what you just heard, find us at rangercast.net or look us up in your favorite podcast app. Reach out to us on Twitter or leave a voicemail on our website. The opening theme is by Daniel Park. The ending theme is by me. RangerCast is distributed under Creative Commons license. Attribute and share alike.